This calls for a cigar with character, so I've chosen an Upmann Maduro. Interesting times we live in. You might even say exciting. The federal government is completely under the control of the Democrat Party, and they are consolidating their power in numerous ways. No one can stop them because there's no opposition. They have complete control of both houses of Congress and the executive branch. But there have been a lot of things happening that have really not made it into the news you may not be aware of. Did you know that more than 30 states now have either pending or adopted legislation reaffirming states' rights under the 9th and 10th Amendments? Did you also know that there are a handful of states being led by Montana and Texas openly challenging the federal government's abuse of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution? Of course you know that it takes 2/3 of the states to call a constitutional convention. But what you probably did not know is that at present it lacks only one state to make that 2/3 majority to call a constitutional convention. One more state ratifies the call to a constitutional convention and everything is up for grabs. The last time a constitutional convention was called, we wound up with a whole new constitution. The constitution that was drafted in 1786 and adopted in 1789. That constitutional convention was called just to amend and modify the Articles of Confederation. Instead, they came back with a whole new constitution. And the same thing could happen again. Not likely, mind you. And I guarantee you that the current government, the current administration, does not want this to happen. But just to show you how much is going on in this country today, the possibility of a constitutional convention. A handful of states, I think there's 5 states now, that are openly challenging the federal government abuse of the Commerce Clause. More than 30 states are reaffirming their rights under the 9th and 10th Amendment. And there are a handful of states, and at least one of them is very blue, that have active secessionist movements. Secession is not likely. That issue was pretty much settled in 1865. But it's very interesting what's going on. And what is more interesting is that the news, the mainstream media, the network news, CNN, those guys, are not reporting it. So a lot of people don't even know what's going on. It's going to be a very exciting 2 years between now and the elections in 2010 and beyond. The first Obama administration, if there is a second one, and that's not by any means certain, is going to be a very exciting time. We are going to see some radical changes in our government, our political structure, and in our society. That reminds me, I was going to talk about same-sex marriage. What has been in the news recently is that Maine became the 5th state to pass legislation legalizing same-sex marriage. I will tell you straight out, I consider myself a Christian. To me, same-sex marriage is just wrong. It's weird, it's sick, it's perverted, I don't get it. At the same time, I'm a libertarian, and I don't think the government should have anything to do with who marries whom. For you Christians that are up in arms about same-sex marriage, especially the ones who don't live in California and yet worked to get Proposition 8 passed, what are you thinking? What really do you care what 2 perverts are doing in their own house, in another state maybe? What harm is it doing you? What harm is it doing you? Do you really think that you can use the strength of government for social engineering? Do you really think that's right? That works both ways, you know. Yes, I've heard all the arguments about if we let queers marry, then the next thing they'll want to marry their dogs, there'll be polygamy, you know, all this stuff. Listen, society is going to change. The social mores are going to change. Look back through the millennia of history of the human race and you will see that these things change just like fashions change. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. And I would remind you that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So don't get your panties all up in a bunch about a couple of queers taking turns sticking their dick in each other's butts in another state. It doesn't matter. It's insignificant. Concentrate on raising your own family. And to you queers out there, I'm not on your side either. What are you thinking? Why are you in such an all-fired hurry to get access to the divorce courts? The only people that are going to benefit from legalizing same-sex marriage are the lawyers. Take it from me, okay? Just find another queer you don't like and give him your house. And then move on. You'll come out way ahead financially, emotionally, everything. I appreciate your comments on anything I have to say. I will respond to anyone who has a legitimate logical argument with any of my positions. I encourage you to try to change my mind. Because if you can come up with the facts that support the logic in your argument, I will be happy to consider changing my point. However, I will not respond to name-calling or personal attacks, and just don't get silly on me because I'll slap you. So I'm going to enjoy this H. Upmann Signature Maduro. A cigar with character. Something sadly lacking in our political class today. And splice the main brace.